By the end of today's episode, you'll know whether it's a good idea to call an agent. And if you're going to do so, how to do it without sounding desperate or annoying. Welcome to the Actor's Career Compass, where we help aspiring screen actors find high-quality auditions, sign with great agents, and book major roles in legit productions. I'm your host, Martin Benson, and today I'll be covering why phone calls can actually be a bit more effective than emails in certain cases, when calling an agent actually makes sense, and what to say on the phone so you sound professional and are taken seriously. So should you call agents out of the blue? In general, it's not a really good idea. Most agents, they're really busy. They don't want random calls from strangers. But calling can actually be good if it's part of a smart follow-up plan once you've already submitted materials. So is it okay to call when you have submitted online and you've followed up by mail and you've still gotten no response? Well, yes. And you're basically, the goal with it is to just call to sort of check in on their submissions process. Okay, so what does that look like? Well, you're not calling to beg for representation, right? Instead, you're just asking about the submissions process or what they look for in clients. You want to be helpful and not come across as pushy. So what do you say on the phone? Well, here's a sample script. Hey, my name is Martin Benson, and I just wanted to call to find out about your submissions process or what's necessary to be considered for representation with agent John Smith. Now, they're going to respond with either blah, 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 this is our submissions process, or they're going to say, well, our submissions instructions can be found on our website, or they're going to say, we're not really taking any new clients at this time. Regardless of what they say, you should just follow up with the next question, which is, okay, well, thank you so much for that. Do you mind if I just ask a couple really quick questions before we end the call? Now, they're going to say either sure, or I'm sorry, but submitting online is best. Or they might say, well, again, I told you we're not really accepting anybody at this time. If they say that they're not accepting anybody, you could just thank them and hang up. But I still recommend that you follow up with this additional question. It might feel a little bit awkward to try to ask this next question if they've already told you and they're kind of adamant and want you off the phone, but it can still make sense to do it. Just depends on how how you're feeling in that moment. Anyway, though, if they say either sure or submitting online is best, it'll be a lot easier for you to say this next thing. The next point that you're going to say is, okay, well, I've just booked a lead in an indie feature or whatever your kind of biggest recent accomplishment is. And then you're just going to say, I was wondering what an actor in my position should do to potentially set up a meeting with John. If they had said, like, we're not accepting anybody new at this time, you could say what an actor in my position should do to potentially set up a meeting with John once you guys are accepting actors again, right? You can just kind of add that little caveat to it to make the question feel slightly less awkward. Now, they're going to respond with, well, here's what you need to do to be considered. Or they're going to say, again, I told you we're not really taking any new clients at this time. Or they're going to say, well, we're only taking clients who have a referral. Regardless of what they say, then you're going to go on to this next point. You're going to say, okay, well, thank you. I can definitely send over the materials you're requesting, or I can definitely follow up in 6 months. Or I can definitely have a referral, give you a call. Whatever, thing that they asked for essentially is what you're going to say. And then you'll say, if that's okay, what's your name, by the way? And so the idea there is you're just trying to get their name so that you can address a follow-up specifically to them after you hang up the call. So let's say they say, my name is Max. And then you'll just say, okay, thanks so much, Max. I really appreciate your time. And that's it. That's where the call ends. Okay. Now, you want to aim to keep your calls under about 2 minutes, and you don't want to pitch your resume unless they ask for it. You only want to mention your most big recent accomplishment. And if they do tell you what to do, then you want to do that and you follow up with a thank you email right away. So if they're like, oh, well, we need a referral, right? Then you want to say, okay, thanks. I'll definitely try to get a referral and get back in touch at that point. And then, you follow up with that email thanking them for their time right away. And then you do what you can to try to find a referral and then get the referral. And then you can even mention like, oh yeah, we spoke on the phone. So-and-so is mentioning that I reach out. They're CC'd on this email and you have your referral, right? But anyway, if the agent or whoever you're speaking to says that you need a bigger accomplishment, right? Like if you have a certain credit that you have and they say, well, we don't consider anybody unless they've already had a guest star role in a network level television show or something, right? You're still going to thank them and say that you'll reach out once you've built up that credit or once you've gotten that accomplishment. And then you're going to just move on to a different agency instead, okay? So the takeaway here is, yes, you should call, just don't do it as the first thing and make the calls sort of part of a well thought out strategy. Your goal is to build a real connection and not just try to get repped overnight. You want to keep it short, polite, and focused on their process. At the end of the day, calling, it might feel scary, but it is one of the most direct ways to stand out, right? You're basically reaching out to them saying, hey, what's the submissions process? What do I need to do if, in my situation to get represented? They'll tell you, and then you say, okay, thanks. We'll definitely reach out once I've done that. Or if they're not signing on anybody, you can say, okay, no problem. I'll reach out in about 6 months to see if you guys are signing on new clients at that point. And then you do that. You actually do the process. But obviously there's hundreds, even thousands of other agencies and managers out there to reach out to. So even if one doesn't work, or if you don't have the right accomplishment for them, or they're not accepting new clients, or again, they require a referral and you can't get one, there's still a ton of other agencies that you'll reach out to and you'll eventually call. And the idea is a lot of actors, they give up after just like 20 or 30 contacts, but you need to do like hundreds in order to start really getting responses. So don't give up just because a few agencies are starting to say no. That doesn't mean that you have nothing ready. It just means that those ones weren't a good fit yet. Well, thanks for listening. Now, if you want to really sign with an agent, I highly recommend checking out my podcast called A Day in the Life of an Agent. It's episode number 134. I dive deep on all the things that agents do and deal with each day. And so this way you're coming at them in a more respectful way when you're reaching out. Like knowing all the stuff that they're involved in is going to be really helpful, because obviously you won't take it as personally if you get a rejection or you never hear back, because you'll know like, oh, these people are just so busy that I'm probably not, I shouldn't assume that they just like hate me or something, right? So it's a really helpful episode. Again, it's number 134. It's called A Day in the Life of an Agent. It's on my show called The Actor's Career Compass. Now, if you found the podcast helpful, I would really appreciate if you could either leave a review, or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment or subscribe, or even both, or even liking the video. Those types of things are super helpful because they let me get the episodes in front of more actors so that I can continue growing this. So that would be super appreciated by me. If you do want to leave the rating for the podcast, you can just go to ratethispodcast.com/actor success. Okay. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon.